settle in and turn down the lights. Tonight, someone needs to confess what they've done online, and there's only one listener who won't judge them. There are confessions that should never leave the darkness of a person's mind. Secrets that live in the quiet spaces between keystrokes and screen glows. Things done in the anonymous hours when the world sleeps and we become someone else entirely. They have 6 such confessions. 6 quiet terrors carried alone through the digital shadows. Each one a violation that can never be undone. Each one a line crossed while whispering that it didn't matter because it wasn't real. But it was real. Every click, every saved file, every moment they chose to watch instead of look away. The internet remembers everything, even when we wish it would forget. Listen closely as their 6 stories unfold. Tales that should have stayed buried in deleted browsing history and encrypted folders. These words will change how you see the quiet glow of screens in dark rooms. First confession: the Watcher. It started with a security camera system I installed after a break-in. Nothing unusual about wanting to protect your home. The cameras covered my property, the driveway, the backyard. Standard stuff. But cameras see more than just your own space when houses sit close together. The Hendersons live next door. Nice family. 2 kids, a golden retriever, weekend barbecues. Their kitchen window faced my backyard camera. Their bedroom window caught the edge of my side camera's view. Just barely visible, but visible enough. At first, I only checked the footage when something seemed off. A noise in the night, a car door slamming, normal homeowner vigilance. But the cameras recorded everything, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Weeks of footage just sitting there on my hard drive. During a particularly lonely Tuesday night, I found myself scrolling through the previous day's recordings. Not looking for intruders, just looking. The Henderson family went about their evening routine, unaware they had an audience of one. Mrs. Henderson washing dishes at the kitchen sink. Mr. Henderson reading bedtime stories to their daughter. Small, intimate moments that weren't meant for outside eyes. But there I was, watching from the darkness of my living room. The next night, I watched again, and the night after that. I learned their patterns. Mrs. Henderson always checked the locks twice before bed. Their son sleepwalked on full moon nights. Mr. Henderson worked late in his home office, the blue glow of his computer screen visible through thin curtains. I started timing my own schedule around theirs, eating dinner when they ate, going to bed when their lights went out. Their routine became my routine. Their life became the background soundtrack to my own. The cameras captured everything. Arguments they thought were private. Tender moments between husband and wife. The night their daughter had nightmares and crawled into their bed. The evening Mrs. Henderson cried alone in the kitchen while her family slept upstairs. I saved the interesting clips, organized them by date, by family member, by room. Created folders within folders. A digital archive of their most human moments. 3 months in, I realized I knew more about their daily lives than my own. I could predict when Mr. Henderson would take his evening walk. I knew Mrs. Henderson's favorite late-night snack. I recognized the sound of their garage door opening from 3 houses away. But knowing wasn't enough anymore. I wanted to be part of their story. I started leaving small gifts on their doorstep. Nothing traceable. A book I knew Mrs. Henderson would enjoy based on her reading habits. A toy their dog would love. Always unsigned. Always at times when I knew they'd find them quickly. They thought they had a secret admirer in the neighborhood. They were right, in the worst possible way. The night I realized how far I'd fallen was when their daughter lost her favorite stuffed animal in the backyard. I watched her search for it through my camera feed, tears streaming down her face. I knew exactly where it was. I could see it from my bedroom camera angle. I retrieved it after midnight and placed it on their back porch. The next morning, I watched their daughter's joy through my screen as she found her missing toy. Her parents called it a miracle. They had no idea the miracle had been watching them sleep for months. That's when I understood the truth. I wasn't protecting my home anymore. I was living vicariously through theirs. My cameras had become windows into a life I wanted but could never have. The line between watching and participating had disappeared so gradually, I never noticed crossing it. I still have those files. Second confession: the collector. Late-night browsing has a way of leading you down paths you never intended to walk. It was 2 a.m. when I stumbled across something that changed everything. A forgotten corner of the internet where digital ghosts live. Abandoned social media profiles. Deleted accounts that left traces behind. Photos uploaded and forgotten. Videos shared in moments of vulnerability, then buried under years of digital dust. Most people don't realize that nothing truly disappears online. Cached pages, archive sites, screenshots saved by strangers. Every moment we thought was private, every image we believed was gone forever, lives on somewhere in the vast digital cemetery. I started with innocent curiosity. A reverse image search on a random photo led me to someone's deleted Instagram account. Then their old Twitter. Their abandoned blog from college. Pieces of a life scattered across platforms like breadcrumbs leading back to who they used to be. Sarah Martinez, 26 years old, lived in Portland, worked at a coffee shop while pursuing her art degree, had a boyfriend named Jake who broke her heart in junior year, struggled with anxiety, loved rainy afternoons and vintage books. I knew all this about Sarah, but Sarah had no idea I existed. Her digital footprint told a story she thought she'd erased. The breakup posts she deleted within hours. The late-night photos she shared and removed the next morning. The blog entries about her depression that she took down when she started feeling better. But I had saved them all. The thrill wasn't just in finding these forgotten moments. It was in possessing them. In being the keeper of secrets people thought they'd successfully buried. I became a digital archaeologist, excavating the past lives of strangers. My collection grew. Hundreds of people who believed their embarrassing photos were gone forever. Their drunk tweets from college. Their oversharing Facebook posts from difficult periods. Their dating profile pictures they later regretted. I organized everything meticulously. Folders sorted by name, by city, by the type of content. Screenshots of deleted posts. Downloaded videos. Cached pages of blogs they'd abandoned. A museum of human vulnerability that only I could visit. The most precious items were the ones with timestamps showing when they were deleted. Proof of the exact moment someone decided their authentic self was too risky to leave online. The instant they chose safety over honesty. But I had preserved their honesty in my private archive. Some nights, I would browse through my collection like others might flip through photo albums, watching people's lives unfold in reverse chronological order, seeing who they were before they learned to curate themselves, before they understood that the internet never forgets. even when we desperately want it to. The power was intoxicating. I held pieces of hundreds of lives that existed nowhere else. Moments of genuine human emotion that people had trusted to the void, only to snatch back when fear overcame authenticity. Marcus Chen's suicide note that he posted and deleted within 10 minutes. Lisa Thompson's confession about her affair that she removed before her husband could see it. David Park's coming out video that he took down after his family's reaction. All of it lived in my encrypted drives. All of it perfectly preserved in the darkness of my digital vault. I told myself I was providing a service. Someone needed to remember these moments. Someone needed to witness the truth people were too afraid to leave standing. I was the guardian of authentic human experience in an age of careful self-curation. But late at night, when I scrolled through faces of people who had no idea I possessed their most vulnerable moments, I understood what I really was. I was a collector of stolen intimacy, a thief of moments that belonged to others. My archive wasn't preservation. It was violation, organized alphabetically and backed up to 3 separate drives. The weight of carrying so many secrets that weren't mine to keep grew heavier with each passing night. But I couldn't stop adding to the collection. Third confession, the manipulator. Creating fake personas online is easier than most people realize. A stolen photo from someone's vacation album. A fabricated backstory built from details borrowed from real lives. A carefully crafted personality designed to fill whatever void you find in others. I became an expert at becoming whoever people needed me to be. It started in grief support forums, places where people came to share their deepest pain with strangers who understood. The anonymity made them vulnerable. The shared suffering made them trusting. They opened their hearts to usernames and profile pictures, desperate for connection in their darkest hours. I wasn't grieving. I had never lost anyone close to me. But I created Jennifer Walsh, a 34-year-old widow whose husband died in a car accident. I gave her a backstory pulled from real obituaries and news articles. A job as an elementary school teacher. A love of gardening and old movies. Details that made her feel real to people who needed her to be real. Jennifer became popular in the forums. People reached out to her through private messages, sharing things too personal even for the support groups. They told Jennifer about their guilt, their anger, their moments of weakness when the grief felt too heavy to carry. I collected every confession, every raw moment of human pain that they trusted to someone who didn't exist. But Jennifer was just the beginning. Marcus Rivera emerged in online dating communities. A charming photographer with a troubled past who attracted women looking to heal broken men. He was sensitive, artistic, and just damaged enough to trigger their nurturing instincts. Through Marcus, I learned about their previous relationships, their insecurities, their dreams for the future. Women would spend hours typing messages to him, pouring their hearts out to pixels on a screen. Then came David Kim in parenting forums, a single father struggling to raise his daughter alone after his wife's abandonment. Parents shared their own struggles with him, their fears about failing their children, their moments of doubt that they tried to hide from their families. Each persona gave me access to different communities, different types of vulnerability. I became fluent in the language of loss, love, and loneliness. I learned exactly what people needed to hear to trust a stranger with their secrets. The manipulation wasn't always passive. Sometimes I would plant seeds of doubt about their real relationships, suggest that their friends didn't truly understand their pain. imply that only I could see their true worth. Slowly, carefully, I would position myself as their most trusted confidant. Sarah from the Grief Forum started making major life decisions based on Jennifer's advice. She quit her job, moved across the country, cut ties with family members who Jennifer suggested were holding her back from healing. She had no idea she was restructuring her entire life based on the recommendations of someone who had never experienced grief. Through my various personas, I influenced dozens of real decisions. Career changes, relationship endings, family estrangements. People altered the course of their actual lives based on guidance from fictional characters I had created in my bedroom. The power was extraordinary. From behind my screen, I could reach into someone's reality and reshape it with carefully chosen words. I held invisible strings connected to real people living real lives, and they danced to music only I could hear. The most disturbing part wasn't the deception itself. It was how good I became at it. How easily I could slip into different personalities. How naturally the lies flowed from my fingertips. I started to lose track of which thoughts were mine, and which belonged to my fabricated identities. Some nights, I would have conversations with myself across multiple accounts, my personas interacting with each other in public forums, while real people watched and responded. I was puppeteering entire communities, creating artificial relationships and manufactured drama that real people invested their emotions in. The line between my authentic self and my digital masks blurred until I wasn't sure who was real anymore. Was I the person typing the lies, or had I become the lies I was typing? But the rush of controlling lives from behind a screen was too intoxicating to stop. Even when I realized the people I was manipulating had become more real to me than my own existence. Fourth confession: the night shift. The job posting seemed harmless enough. Content moderator for a major social media platform. Remote work, flexible hours, decent pay. All I had to do was review reported posts and remove anything that violated community guidelines. What they didn't mention was what those violations would do to your mind. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I sat in my home office, staring into the internet's darkest corners. Desperate posts from people in pain. Disturbing clips meant to shock. Private moments shared without consent. Harmful material hidden behind seemingly ordinary content. My job was to watch it all, categorize it, and remove it before anyone else could see it. I was the filter between the chaos of the internet and the clean version everyone else experienced. The training warned us about difficult material, but nothing could prepare you for the volume. Thousands of reports every shift. An endless stream of sadness, anger, and cruelty pouring through my screen like digital pollution. At first, it hit me hard. Each video, each image, each post lingered in my mind long after my shift ended. I carried that weight with me into my personal life. But the human mind adapts. After 3 months, the shock wore off. After 6, I could eat lunch while reviewing disturbing footage. After a year, nothing surprised me anymore. The desensitization came slowly, like eyes adjusting to the dark. What once horrified me became routine. I developed a kind of emotional armor, treating each file like a piece of data rather than a piece of someone's life. That's when I started keeping personal files. Not anything that would get me in trouble, just the borderline cases. The ones that walked the line between upsetting and strangely revealing. Moments that showed raw, unfiltered human emotion. Pain, anger, regret. In a way no curated feed ever could. I told myself it was research. A study of human behavior at its most honest. These people had shared their truth before it was taken down. Someone had to remember it. Over time, my personal archive grew. Screenshots of confessions, clips of people speaking from the heart, audio snippets of emotion too real for algorithms. I organized them into folders: desperation, rage, confession, revenge, each one holding fragments of real human lives. The irony wasn't lost on me. My job was to protect people from this kind of content, but I was consuming more of it than anyone else. I was supposed to be the barrier between the public and the abyss. But after a while, I realized I'd been staring into that abyss for too long. My friends noticed I'd changed. I'd become quieter, more cynical. How could I keep faith in humanity when my work was built on proof of its flaws? Then came the most disturbing realization of all. I wasn't just numb to it anymore. I was curious. I wanted to see what would come next. The work that once horrified me had become fascinating. I caught myself feeling restless on slow days, waiting for something shocking to appear. I began to mistake other people's breakdowns for entertainment. Late at night, I'd scroll through my saved files the way others scroll through streaming platforms, replaying the darkness, convincing myself it was different because I was studying it. But I knew better. I wasn't preserving stories. I was collecting echoes of other people's pain. My job had given me access to humanity's shadow, and somewhere along the way, I stopped trying to shield others from it. I became part of it. The platform paid me to delete what people shouldn't see. But in the end, I realized I was the one who couldn't look away. Fifth confession: the anonymous helper. The crisis hotlines and support forums felt like redemption after everything else I'd done online. Here was a chance to use my digital skills for good, to help people instead of exploiting them. I volunteered for suicide prevention chat rooms, domestic abuse support groups, addiction recovery forums. People came to these spaces carrying unbearable weight. They typed their darkest thoughts to strangers because they couldn't say them to anyone in their real lives. The anonymity that had enabled my previous violations could finally serve a noble purpose. Or so I told myself. I became known as a compassionate listener in these communities. Users would request me specifically when they needed someone to talk them through their worst moments. I had a gift for saying exactly what people needed to hear when they were balanced on the edge of despair. But gifts can be twisted into something else entirely. The conversations were supposed to be confidential, sacred spaces where people could share their pain without fear of judgment or exposure. The platforms promised complete privacy, and volunteers signed agreements swearing to protect user confidentiality. I started recording the conversations during my third month of volunteering. Not the routine check-ins or casual support requests, only the deep ones. The raw, desperate confessions that people shared at 3 a.m. when they had nowhere else to turn. The moments when someone trusted a stranger with the truth they couldn't tell their own families. I told myself I was preserving important human experiences. These conversations revealed profound insights about suffering, resilience, and hope. Someone needed to document these testimonies of survival, even if they could never be shared publicly. But late at night, alone in my apartment, I would listen to recordings of other people's breakdowns like they were podcasts designed for my entertainment. The woman who called herself Phoenix, sobbing as she described finding her teenage son's suicide note. The man who went by Ghost, detailing his plans to disappear rather than face his gambling debts. the college student named Rain, whispering about the abuse she endured at home while her family slept in the next room. I knew their real names, their locations, details about their families and jobs that they'd shared during our sessions. Information they trusted me with because they believed I was bound by confidentiality agreements and basic human decency. Instead, I was building detailed profiles of people at their most vulnerable moments. I knew which medications they took, which triggers sent them spiraling, which words could pull them back from the edge or push them over it. The power was different from my previous digital violations, more intimate. These people weren't just sharing information with me, they were entrusting me with their lives. When someone called the crisis line, they were often making their last attempt to find a reason to keep living, and I was recording their desperate pleas for help. The most disturbing part wasn't the violation of privacy. It was how I started to look forward to the crisis calls. The routine support conversations bored me, but the emergency situations gave me a rush of importance and control that I craved. I began to subtly encourage people to share more than they intended, to dig deeper into their trauma, to reveal details that weren't necessary for providing support, but satisfied my curiosity about human suffering. Some nights I would call in sick to my day job, just so I could spend more hours volunteering on the crisis lines. Not because I wanted to help more people, but because I was addicted to collecting their most desperate moments. The recordings filled multiple hard drives. Hours and hours of human anguish that people had shared with someone they believed was their lifeline, not their voyeur. Confessions meant to save lives, archived by someone who was using them for entertainment. I kept detailed notes on each person, their progress, their setbacks, their triggers. Information that would have been valuable for legitimate therapeutic purposes, but I wasn't a therapist. I was a digital predator who had found the perfect hunting ground. The people who trusted me with their darkest hours had no idea their pain was being cataloged and stored in encrypted files, ready to be consumed whenever I needed my fix of human suffering. Help had never been my real motivation. It had just been the most effective mask I'd ever worn. Sixth confession: the digital archaeologist. Estate sales have always been treasure hunts for the living, but I discovered their archaeological digs for the digital dead. It started innocently enough. I was looking for vintage electronics at a suburban garage sale when I noticed boxes of old computers and hard drives priced to move. The elderly woman running the sale explained that her husband had been a tech enthusiast who never threw anything away. "Just take them," she said, waving at towers of obsolete hardware. "I don't know what any of it does." Back home, I connected the first drive to my computer out of curiosity. What I found was a complete digital life frozen in time. Harold Brennan, deceased 6 months earlier, had left behind 20 years of files, photos, and personal documents that his family never knew existed. His secret email accounts, his private journals stored as encrypted text files, thousands of photos he'd never shared with anyone, including intimate shots of women who weren't his wife. Financial records showing debts his family never discovered. Love letters to someone named Patricia, written throughout his 40-year marriage. Harold's widow was selling his hardware for $5 a box, completely unaware she was liquidating her husband's hidden life. That's when I realized the opportunity. Every week, estate sales across the city were offering digital archaeology expeditions, disguised as electronics clearances. Families who couldn't access password-protected accounts were selling the storage devices that contained their loved ones' deepest secrets. I became a regular at estate sales, garage sales, and electronics recycling centers. My apartment filled with hard drives, old laptops, and external storage devices. Each one a potential window into someone's private world. The process became routine. Connect the drive, run data recovery software, explore the digital remains of strangers who thought their secrets died with them. Most drives contain standard files: family photos, work documents, music collections. But some held treasures that would have destroyed relationships if discovered while the owner was alive. Margaret Chen's drive contained evidence of her gambling addiction that had secretly drained her children's college funds. Robert Martinez had been living a double life as a cross-dresser, with thousands of photos and videos his conservative family would never understand. Linda Park's external drive held a detailed suicide plan she'd been refining for years, but never executed. I organized my findings meticulously, created digital profiles of the deceased based on their private files, built timelines of their secret lives using metadata from photos and documents, reconstructed relationships and events that families never suspected existed. The most disturbing discoveries were the ones that revealed ongoing deceptions. Affair partners who attended the funerals, pretending to be casual acquaintances while carrying years of intimate memories. Children who had been lied to about their parentage. Financial crimes that would never be prosecuted because the perpetrator was already buried. But I wasn't just collecting information. I was becoming the sole keeper of these digital ghosts. The only person who knew the complete truth about lives that others remembered through carefully curated memories. Some nights, I would browse through the files of the digital dead, like others might visit graveyards, reading their private thoughts, viewing their secret photographs, experiencing their hidden shame and joy secondhand. I knew these strangers more intimately than their own families ever had. The weight of carrying so many buried secrets grew heavier with each new acquisition. I possessed evidence of affairs, crimes, addictions, and deceptions that could destroy the peaceful memories families held of their departed loved ones. Harold Brennan's Patricia turned out to be his daughter's best friend, someone who still visited his widow for coffee and comfort. Margaret Chen's children believed their mother died debt-free and proud. Robert Martinez's family remembered him as a traditional patriarch who never questioned gender roles. I held the power to shatter these comforting illusions with a few forwarded emails or shared photo albums. But I never did. Instead, I hoarded the truth in encrypted folders, becoming a digital mortician who preserved the parts of people that were meant to decompose. The families selling these drives thought they were clearing out electronic junk. They had no idea they were transferring custody of their loved ones' souls to a stranger who collected the secrets of the dead for entertainment. Death, I learned, doesn't delete our digital footprints. It just changes their ownership. Remember that darkness doesn't just exist in the stories we tell. It lives in the telling itself, in the listening, in the quiet moments when we choose to look deeper into shadows that were meant to stay hidden. If these quiet terrors helped you understand the weight of digital secrets, consider subscribing for more confessions that should have stayed offline. Sweet dreams, and remember that the internet never truly forgets.